and welcome to Final Fights. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me are two people who carry around cans of dog food with them at all times now. It's Robert Lamb and Amber Simpson.
Hey, what's
all
up?
times.
All the time. Sometimes I do cat food if I can't get dog food, you know.
Like, those are like the ninja stars of throwing cans. Cat food.
Yeah.
Because they're smaller, right?
Yeah. You can throw them like the side, like a ninja star, like a frisbee. If you have like a good, just like overarching throw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've learned if my pockets aren't too big and I gotta be kind of inconspicuous, I just slip a can of cat food in my pocket.
Right. But a lot of times you said that your pockets are usually just too big, right?
Yeah, big. I wear Jinko jeans at all times, so I have like 14 things of dog food in there right now. I'm saying, a zombie apocalypse happens.
Dog food.
Well,
yeah, you can eat it and you can throw it.
Yeah, exactly. And then I can throw it, then eat it. Like, it's really great. Like, I used to just have rocks, but then I learned, well, you can't eat the rock.
What do you think tastes? Well, you know what you could do is if your stomach's not working, you can eat the rocks and eat a bunch of rocks, and then they'll grind up in your stomach and they'll break down the food in your stomach so you can pass it through, like the Apatosaurus in the prehistoric age.
What?
Yeah, I think our intestinal tracts are the exact same. So, I mean,
I think it's the exact same as an Apatosaurus.
Now, I'm not saying for you listeners to go do this. No, don't do it. But,
Don't swallow rocks.
Yeah.
Do carry dog food, but don't swallow.
Absolutely. So I gotta tell you something. When y'all suggested this to me, when Amber suggested it, I was jealous. Not jealous and like I just wish I would have thought of it. Like, this is a fun final fight right here. And I don't know if you... Oh, go for it. Sorry.
It's really fun. It's like one of the only final fights that I laughed hysterically through the whole thing.
Like, you don't know what to expect. You're just sitting there, and you have Cliff just high off of the acid cigarette, and then it just gets so violent. But I kind of love how they built up to it. So, like, in the beginning, remember when he went to the ranch and Tex was established as this total badass? So you think, oh man, Cliff is in trouble. But then you learn Cliff can fight Bruce Lee. Yeah. And then you have the scenes with the dog food earlier. He gets the cigarette earlier, and then you get introduced to the flamethrower earlier. So like every card is like on the table when this thing breaks out, and then narratively it just makes a lot of fun sense.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people were like upset with the whole Bruce Lee, like him kind of kicking Bruce Lee's ass, but I think that was to show just how badass Cliff was, and like that's why he was just set up to just kick ass at the very end.
I mean, even with this acid cigarette.
That just added to it because he was just like goofy, and like he was already like an amazing character, but like it made him like goofy, and he's just like giggling while he's fucking murdering people. It's great.
Yeah. I'm the devil. No, it's something stupider than that.
Yeah, something stupider than that.
So I did the math on this, and there's 3 dog bites, there's 1 can throw, there's 3 punches that Tex lands on the dog, there's a kick, there's a tackle, there's 4 dog bites, there's 12 head smashes, and then there's the flamethrower. I can't say that word today. But yeah, so like this fight, I just love how it travels everywhere. And all right, did you
even
guys...
the face smashes travel?
Yeah,
I mean, it goes from like desk to like picture frame or whatever.
The redheaded chick, I counted it too. He slams her face into the phone first 3 times.
Yeah,
and then he pulls her over, slams her into a picture of Rick Dalton, and then pulls her over to a brick wall, hits her in the brick wall once, and then brings her over to like the ledge in the fireplace. That's the most brutal one. It's like the corner, and then like you hear it go like 3 times, and then he goes over to the table 4 times, and then just picks up her head, looks at her, and throws her down.
Yeah, I'm surprised she still had a head after that.
Right?
Yeah, half of that would have been gone.
Yeah,
that was brutal.
It just made, like, this sounds really weird, but in the theater, everybody was laughing. But it's such, like, a brutal scene, but it's played for laughs. Like, I like that Tex goes down like just a complete chump. I mean, he gets his head stomped in.
He does, yeah. But I think that... And his dick bit off by a dog.
Yeah. The whole point of that is, like, these are bad people. So I think the reason why everybody's laughing is they really don't give a shit about these people.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, these are evil people.
I think it adds to the comedy. The one chick just like screaming the whole entire time. She's not fucking stopped screaming.
Yep. What did you think about that? Because after like the first time I watched it, I didn't really notice it. Then I watched it again. I noticed the screaming a little more. And the third time I watched it, I'm like, wow, this is almost oppressive screaming.
Yeah,
What do y'all think about that?
It was weird. Like the fact that she's like screaming through. Well, I mean, she does even scream all the way out to the pool.
She screams literally
out
the
of the
whole
pool.
time.
Yeah.
It starts with her like coming at Cliff with the knife, right? And she starts screaming then, and then he, pegs her in the face with the dog can, and then that's when she starts screaming in pain and does not stop until she gets murdered by being turned.
I mean,
into...
with so much going on, like Mark said, like I didn't really notice it that much the first time. I mean, I remember her screaming, but not like the whole time. But the second time I watched it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I get.
I think it just adds to the comedy of it, actually, because it makes it more funny.
And it's like frantic. She's like twirling around and like her arms are in the air at some point, just like flailing about.
She had quite the adventure too. She catches a dog food can in the face, then a dog attacks her, and then Leo DiCaprio or Rick Dalton just lights her up. Like it's quite the journey throughout the house.
I love how she gets like burned, like lit up in the pool. Like she's like
I know, right?
At the top of the pool, like it's
she could have just dunked underwater.
Yeah, I get that she's already like in a lot of pain and everything, and like things aren't going well, and she's not thinking clearly,
and she can't see. I think that's.
I think she had like glass in her face. And stuff, right?
After she gets like hit in the face with the dog can, she already can't see.
Yeah, so I mean, I get it, but like, it's just funny that she's getting lit up in a pool.
Rick Dalton's in there just drinking his whiskey sours or his margaritas.
That was the best thing at the very end when Emil Hirsch's character, Jay Sebring or whatever, comes down and he's like asking him what happened, and then he's like, I torched a girl. He's like, you torched them? He's like, yeah. It's like the old flamethrower from the Guns of whatever it was called.
And then they call him a bunch of hippie assholes at the end when the cops came. And then these hippie assholes come into the house. I think my favorite part, though, of the fight is when Francesca goes, psst, and then she punches, I think Sadie in the house. I think
Sadie,
it is. Yeah, she just sucker punches.
Sadie, one of them.
Yeah, she sucker punches her right in the face. That made me happy. I like a good cheap shot. And then she ran into the room with the dog. And
let the dog in or whatever later on.
Yeah, that was after the dog got scared because the girl with the black hair shot the gun. Yeah.
I just dig it that she's, I like that says something about her character. Like she's cool to throw down.
Yeah. I mean, she didn't get like a lot of screen time in general. You know what I mean? So that was something.
And then I don't know if you guys noticed this, but when they were walking to the fight, I loved how the camera like really focused on the weapons they had. So Tex had the gun, and then Sadie and Katie had their knives. And just the way they were walking, like I think one of them had the knife in their left hand, and then in the middle was Tex with the gun between his belt, and then the next to him she had her knife in the right hand. It was just a really cool way to kind of establish what kind of the rules were of the fight.
Right, like what everybody had, especially Brad Pitt with the dog food.
Yeah, right. All he needed. Such a bat.
What was the name of the dog food? Do you guys remember that?
Oh shit! It's something like something weird.
Good boy dog food.
Something like that, yeah.
And then they set that up earlier too, didn't they? Didn't he feed the dog in his trailer?
Yeah, and it was always 2 cans and then like some dry food on top.
Yeah, and you watch it
so much food.
You watch it like fall out in one big chunk in the bowl. So then when he's high and he's doing it, he's like,
We just need a separate movie where he's on acid cigarettes the entire time.
All right.
He tasted the dog food at one point too. He like licked it. He tongued it.
Yeah, that's right.
I looked up who did the stunt coordinator in this was Zoe Bell. And she's the one from Death Proof who was hanging on the car.
Oh, nice.
And like she's in this movie with Kurt Russell as well. You got to have Kurt Russell.
Yeah, she's his wife, right?
Yeah. And like she's like one of the stunt coordinators, I think. But it's kind of cool that she was an actress in Death Proof. Now she's coordinating this like all these action scenes in this picture. So I kind of dug that.
I mean, yeah, she did all her stuff in Death Proof though, so that's pretty cool.
Stepping up in the world, coordinating on this big movie. Did you guys? All right, so I read a lot of articles on this. I want to see what you guys think. Like, like there's so many articles about this movie, just kind of complaining about the violence and like violence against. There's like violence against women in this. There's violence against that. But like, I think the scene is played for laughs, and they're trying to kill him. Like,
okay, so here's my whole thing: it's the whole movie is obviously about these 2 guys for the most part. Sharon Tate's in the movie, but if you like watch Sharon Tate is like she's kind of like the fantasy. I mean, they're all kind of like a fantasy element, but she's like the real fantasy element that has like a set realism where the sense that, she got murdered that night, and they go by like hour to hour of like, these people, Jay Sebring and that Folgers girl, and everybody like goes to eat, and then they go back to the house, and then late at night, that's when the Manson family shows up and stuff. But Cliff Booth and Rick Dalton end up being like the guys because Rick Dalton goes out there with his margaritas what was it? Margaritas?
Yeah, it was frozen.
Okay.
Margaritas.
Yeah, and he yells at them because they're making a lot of noise and stuff. So he draws their attention rather than Sharon Tate. So this whole like Once Upon a Time is actually more of like a fantasy to give Sharon Tate a better ending overall. So them taking on the Manson family and having the family go to Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth and then having them kill the Manson family is kind of like a fantasy, like here's almost a happy ending. Yes, it's violent, but these people were going to murder women and guys too, so who cares?
Right.
At least it's taking out the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
I like that view.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The movie's called Once Upon a Time. Like,
yeah, it's that's the whole
fantasy.
point. It's a fantasy, but I think it's like it actually shows Tarantino trying to give a happy ending to Sharon Tate and the people who were murdered that night, and instead take out the anger on like these characters or who are real people like Tex Watson and stuff, and just like give them a unhappy ending for being such shitty people who went to go murder.
Do you think 12 head smashes were enough, or should they gone for like 30? Like, okay, I have a question. So 12 is almost a perfect number, and then I think maybe 18 would have been too much. But if you went to 35, would that have been funny again?
I say, nah, just Baker's dozen. Do one more.
Is there a number that's so excessive, Amber, that would be funny again?
I don't think so. I don't know, because to me, like, it is brutal seeing that, and it grosses me out. And I think if it would have been much more, I would have been too grossed out to think it was funny. So I don't know. I think it was perfect. I think it went perfectly along, like with the song that they played, like the Keep Me Hanging On by Vanilla Fudge. Yep. Like it was perfect. And I really, really, really love like how they laid out the song with how the action went, like that scene where the redheaded bitch attacks
says that, right?
Cliff and then he gets the knife in his hip or whatever, and then he like looks down and he like taps the knife a few times, and that's like when the song like starts getting crazy. It's like dun dun dun, and then like he just fucking goes to town on her.
I mean Tarantino's good with like music in that way. Like his soundtracks with all his movies, like he takes the time to really pick and choose what song he wants for each scene.
I loved it. But no, I don't.
Fog Hat.
yeah. Slow Ride?
Yep, well, of course. And then like he's like you with a little white little face that he says to her,
white
like
face.
And also in movies, like there's so many fight scenes where you don't really buy the actor, but in this movie I just bought everything Brad Pitt did. Like I kind of bought that he was just this kind of war guy who may or may not have killed his wife, who was just a total like badass. I don't know. Did you guys kind of get that vibe from him as well?
Oh, definitely.
I definitely think that's why, like, I'll bring it up again. The Bruce Lee fight. Like, I just heard people were, like, upset about it. Like, Bruce Lee's family didn't like the depiction of Bruce Lee in the movie, which I get. He was, like, kind of cocky and fantasy stuff. But it's also, like, like, I remember reading an interview with Tarantino where he said that, especially, like, with Inglourious Bastards or Django Unchained or, like, this movie, he likes to put his own characters into kind of real life situations. And he says that like, while it's changing history, like especially like with Bastards, he says it doesn't matter because he imagines that's what it would play like if his characters were real people in that time.
Oh, wow. And
I think so he tries to shove his own people. And that's kind of what, especially with Once Upon a Time, I think that was more like Tarantino reserved. Like I think Once Upon a Time is more like grown up Tarantino, where there is still like blood and violence, but it's not really till the very end, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like the whole movie is not it's very like slow moving character building, and I know he loves dialogue, but it's like to me it was like even slower and less brutal than a lot of his other movies.
Well, I like how like for Cliff, like when he fights Bruce Lee, like